This episode of Small Business Leaders Podcast is brought to you by Adams Lane Photography.
Welcome to the Small Business Leaders Podcast, coming to you from the Legacy Podcast Studio in Kernersville, North Carolina. My name is Lamar Powell.
And I am Audra Adams, your co-host.
Yeah, and my sister-in-law.
Oh, all the same thing.
Yeah.
How many families do you know that work together so much?
And get along.
Right.
That's the thing.
It works out.
Yeah.
We don't need
We get
therapy.
along on camera.
Oh, no.
And off camera.
Yeah, we do.
We do.
So today we are going to talk about something that we haven't been able to talk about because we didn't have the experience to talk about it yet.
Yeah. So months and months and months ago, we started Legacy Podcast Studio, and we started a flagship podcast called the Small Business Leaders Podcast, which you already know that because we started with that. But we have 10 episodes under our belts now that have been produced and published. I guess that's the right word.
Yeah, that's the right word.
And I think what we want to do today is we want to do a little bit of recapping, reviewing some of the things we've done. Now, we've done so much, there's no way for us to recap everything.
No, not in this one. No, not in one episode.
No,
but
not enough time.
We have sure learned a lot in 10 episodes.
Yes.
For sure.
Yeah. And I want to start by saying that I've absolutely loved doing this.
Yeah, me too.
And I have thoroughly enjoyed meeting all of the business owners and personalities that we've met along the way. It's really been fun, enlightening, and probably a bunch of other words I could say that I'm not supposed to say. that they're all good words.
Daniel's sitting over there like, you can't use this one, you can't use that one. We tend to overuse
a lot of words.
And we're learning our listeners. We are learning.
So I think what's neat is not only meeting the personalities that we've met, the people that we've met, but also hearing and seeing the stories that these people have brought to us. And not just that, it also being able at this table, in this studio, to be able to feel the emotion, the challenges that these people have faced, the successes that they've had. And we've had some emotional conversations.
Yes, we really have.
And we have felt that. And I think that is just a wonderful thing. And I'm glad we've experienced it.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't feel like when we come to this table that we've ever left the same as when we got here, when we've had a guest on the other side of that. So for me, I always think that I should be moving forward as in myself, as growing and learning, and I'm just a sponge for so many different types of things. So I'm curious by nature. So when we have been able to talk to so many different people from so many different types of businesses, but yet they all impart wisdom that I get to walk away from this table with, like it's a value to me personally. So I look forward to, it's not, we have a podcast today. It's like, we have a podcast today.
Yeah. I think it's what's been, what I have liked most about it, and I think what we've tried to accomplish, and we've talked about this off camera too, because we do talk about our podcast. We do talk about the people that we've met and we've interviewed and we've heard their stories. But even though we are a small business podcast where we do want to talk about those practical things that are business related, it's not just about that. That's important, and we need to learn from that. And we have learned a lot from that. We've gotten insight from all of these people. But there's also a story that goes along with all of these businesses and their owners. And that I I'm interested in the business part of it. Yeah, that's the practical part of it. But the thing that touches me and just goes to the depths of my heart, my soul, is hearing those stories and experiencing that. Yeah.
Yeah. They really have been pretty vulnerable
Yeah.
here at the table. It's been very natural. It's not been very difficult to pull out these, these nuggets of their lives,
Yeah.
and they are just sharing that. So I kind of want to dive into some of the things that have spoken to me. So
Okay. So we'll do that.
okay,
But
well,
there's something I want to do first.
okay,
It's also funny too. You talk about hearing what people have to say, because we've had people sit down before we start filming. I don't know if I'm going to be able to say anything,
yeah,
and they get comfortable, and then they begin to share what's on their heart. But I want to say this before we start getting into some of the details of these episodes. I want to thank both you and Daniel for what you have contributed to this journey. Both of you, Daniel's our director and engineer and extraordinaire. I don't know what he does, so many things, but he's played a very instrumental role in putting all of this together. Yeah, it's been a team effort, but I mean, we have microphones and we have cameras and we have lights, and we have to have somebody behind the controls
yeah.
and somebody who's editing and putting all this together. He's done an amazing job, and I'm so proud of the product that we have put out. And when I go back and look at these episodes, I'm like, wow, this is really great. From our intro, which I love, Daniel's done an amazing job with that. And then you have done an amazing job, Audra.
I'm gonna
I'm not just bragging on you
you
because we're
are.
related, but I'm bragging on you because it has been, it's been fun for me to watch as you've communicated with our guests, and you've been able to draw out very important insights from them for our audience. And I want to thank you for that. So with that being said, I appreciate all the hard work that both of you have done, and it's been fun to be a part of it.
Well, we can't mention that without going and saying this, what your part, thank you, first of all.
Yeah.
But your part is you're coming in prepared. You have, the background of everybody. You try to make sure that you and I are on the same page. But then after the production is put in your hands, after the editing and everything, it's put in your hands, and you're the one that has to take the time to upload it to all the different platforms.
That's been an interesting journey,
Yeah,
for sure.
and to do the reels and all of those things, and we've kind of trial and error this, and I know we will continue to do that. But thank you, because it's invaluable. I think every person on this team really has made it work, and I am also proud of the product, and I'm proud of the production value, and I would.
It's been a great team effort.
Yeah, for
thank
sure.
you guys for that. So let's get into what we're here for today. And
Okay.
I know there's some things we've talked about this also off camera. We tried to talk about some of the highlights, and while we can't talk about all of them, no way to do it because there's so many. So let's start with Miss Julia Brown, if that's okay. Momo's chicken pie.
Yeah,
And
that was an awesome episode.
yeah, it was. I want to talk about that for just a minute, and I know you want to share some insights, and we'll share a couple of clips with our viewers so you can see what we're talking about as well. But I really, from the beginning, I fell in love with her.
Yeah.
Her personality, because I did see her on social media. I know Daniel brought her name up, and we talked about her some, and then I saw a couple of her own videos off of her social media, and
She's
she's a
hysterical.
character.
Yeah.
She is a character, and I just really fell in love with her. And what I like about her is her business is a family. It truly is a family business, and so one of the things I like doing is not only doing these episodes, but I also like going to those businesses. I like to see the business owners in their business. And I was able to do that with Miss Julia. Went to her business. I saw what they did. I saw them making the chicken pies. It was really neat to see. But I also ate there.
Yeah.
I know we ate some of her chicken pies in your home.
Yeah, we did Sunday
we
dinner.
did that one Sunday.
Yes.
And then I also went over to their little restaurant and ate lunch, and it was very good. I enjoyed that, and looking forward to going back and doing that again. But I was able to meet her. Story began because of her granddaughter. And what was neat to me is I was able to go in and meet her granddaughter working there.
Daniel and I actually went by as well.
Okay, cool.
And we were all, we had everybody from the back come up. I got to meet her granddaughter and the people that she talked about here on the podcast. So that is an indelible mark.
Yeah. So to me, that's just made her episode a whole lot more special. Because that's something we kind of did before and after.
Yeah.
And she's a part of our community, and just an amazing person.
If you haven't seen the episode with Momo's Chicken Pies, it'll be linked and it'll be in our playlist on YouTube, and you can also find that on our
Spotify and all the platforms. We have too many of them to announce.
Yeah, you just look for Legacy Podcast Studio, and you'll be able to find out more about Momo's Chicken Pies. One thing I love that she said in her interview was, she kind of gave us a story of how it started, and it was, ground floor. It started in her kitchen, and then it moved to a shed, and then it moved to after, some difficulties and trials that happened. She ended up in a building here in Kernersville. And there were some smart business decisions that she made.
Very smart. That
kind of left me pretty respect. I mean, I was full of respect for her. But to our listeners and viewers, that one of the things that she was able to do was she purchased the building that they're in, and then she let Momo's Chicken Pie pay rent there.
Back to her.
Yeah. And she also then had another tenant at the time. And so she even says on there, my accountant always tells me how smart that is, but it really, really is smart for anyone who maybe owns their own place at this point and they want to start a business to really think about, hey, let the business pay the rent and pay, the mortgage here first, even if you already own the place. It makes good financial sense. And then the next thing that she really spoke to me about was, we didn't have any idea what we were doing. Right. We just learned as we went along. And then she really said, it's made me more confident in whatever's to come because we made it through that. So I know we can make it through whatever has come, and a lot more came their way. Some serious things came their way.
So a lot of the challenges, what they do is we learn it. If you're a business owner, you learn this. Those challenges, actually, if you go through them, they teach you, educate you, and prepare you for the next challenge that's going to come along. And for them, what was exciting, she announced that they were going to be able to have a process to deliver across the whole country.
You got distribution.
Yeah, and it ended up happening. Yeah. That's happening now.
Amazing. You can order that. So check out her episode. There's so much more. She's lovely. Yeah. Momo's Chicken Pies. You can find her on Facebook and her website. You can order all over the country and get her pies delivered to you. And then we have Blue Nest Mercantile.
Yes. So Christy and Alan, or Chrissy.
Chrissy, yeah.
I want to call her Christy. It's Chrissy.
Let's not start calling people by their own names. No,
that was an amazing episode for a lot of reasons. I think what got my attention is when I was doing research. Of course, she's our neighbor.
Yeah,
she's right across the street here in historic downtown.
You have to always put that in there somewhere.
It's such a beautiful place. It is. And she has such a beautiful business there, store. And if you haven't been in, you need to go in. And I'm a guy, and I walk in, I'm just like, wow, it's
you
really
kind of want to live there.
Yeah, it's really nice. So she's this designer, and so when I started doing some research, and I know you did the same thing. she has a medical background. Like she was like going to medical school.
No,
And
she went through and got her master's in physical therapy.
yes, and even had her own practice.
Yeah,
Right.
right.
So I'm like, wait a minute, this doesn't make sense here. We got
How do
to
you
find
get
out that
from
story.
that to interior design and also opening, Blue Nest Mercantile? And she kind of took us through that
Yeah.
process. So the first thing that stood out to me is 25 years ago when she started in medical school. She and it I believe it was the way it was, especially for women. We really only had a few choices of career paths that were easily attainable and more preferred, if you will. I'm not super PC right here, but that's what I'm getting at. And so she felt like that she had to pick one of those predetermined things to move on to in higher education. And she did not consider, nor did anybody really at that time consider, hey, what do I want to do? And I think that that's still very applicable
Yeah.
to today. You have so many college students that you're asking them, well, really, what do you want to do? And they're like, well, we don't know yet. But we're just at college spending this exorbitant amount of money, not knowing what they really want to do yet, and for whatever reason. I think we're in a culture today that an 18-year-old is supposed to know exactly what they're going to do, what college, and have been preparing for it since they were 10 or 11 years old and building their sort of resume that would get them into, the 4-year college. And I think that's so much pressure on our young people. And I know that we have
Yeah.
college-age kids that it really makes them question, am I behind? Or am I like, I don't know what I want to be yet. Is that wrong? And so trying to nurture and find a balance in between, yes, higher education is sometimes required and necessary. Hey, but you know what? Sometimes trade school is
Right.
also an option right there. Just has kind of really changed my mindset because you can go and who knows how much all of that cost her.
Right.
And then really who she was a designer in her heart that wanted to put pieces,
Yeah.
together. So I don't know if that makes sense. That's
Yeah,
just
yeah, it
where,
does. And I know what she explained to us is she had a family situation and went through a divorce, and with her children were really struggling, and they found peace in their home when she built a new home and they designed it a
yeah,
certain way, and it changed everything within their family.
which is where the name came
Right.
from because she built a nest
Yeah.
for her daughter who was really struggling with knowing where to belong. And when she did that and saw the meaning of that, that sparked her interest to
Yeah.
say, yeah, I want to go and be a designer. And the interesting thing is, she told us in North Carolina, you don't have to have some special
Yeah.
certificate to be a designer, but she wanted one.
Yes.
And so she went, to a more prestigious design school. And she said she wanted to do that because she wanted to know the history. She wanted to understand colors. And she also wanted resources for if she would ever get stuck, that she had resources to go and draw from
Yeah.
and help her to become even better
Yeah.
at what she's doing.
So what I think there, and when you talk with Chrissy, she's very capable, very intelligent, no doubt was very good in the medical field because she
She
did have
was,
her own
yeah.
practice with a partner, which that's not an easy task in and
No.
of itself. But I think what it boils down to in that episode was the fact of what you're passionate about, finding your passion, because it's a whole lot more fulfilling to you when you're able to find that and do that. And then the other thing that was really neat about that episode was Alan.
Alan.
We had Alan with us, and he was hysterical. I enjoyed meeting him, and we had some common ties in history with Louisiana and New Orleans and things of that nature. But what we learned about him and her was the partnership that oftentimes important for a business owner, where you can, and I know we've had that. You've had that as well, working with a partner in business. To help you with the challenges. And Alan was very instrumental. And probably one of the funniest things is when they first met, that made me really laugh, and I enjoyed it. And I like going back and watching that. Is one of the ways I guess he won her heart or whatever was he was very good at ironing. And I remember that. We'll just call it ironing.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was fun to watch. And the other thing that I liked and enjoyed very much is the week we actually released that episode is when they actually had their wedding.
Yeah.
And
it was a beautiful wedding.
It was a beautiful wedding.
Goodness.
Here in Kernersville. And then what I also liked is they're a blended family, and they took a family honeymoon to Greece.
Yeah.
And they were on the island of Crete, which I would like to visit there too someday. But
so you're just seeing
neat.
Like the payoff in every area of, her life for stepping out. I think she's the one that had a quote. Maybe hold on, let me see if I can find it. It is because I asked her if she could sum up something in like one phrase about business. Like, what would it be? And I believe it says, fear is taking the first step without seeing the staircase.
Yes.
Faith.
Faith.
Okay, let me say that again. I believe she said faith is taking the first steps without seeing the staircase.
Yes.
And that kind of really resonated with me because that's what she did. And along the way, she now has this support system and a love in her home life and a love and a passion for her store and the design work that she's able to do.
So a neat family and really fun to watch and keep up with, an amazing business. And one other thing about them that I really like is she's very active on social media, and you need to check that out. But she's very supportive of our community and other businesses in our community.
Which, business-wise, if you're listening or watching, that's one of the things we're learning from each one of our guests. It's very important to be involved. We had the guest, the president of the Chamber of Commerce in Kernersville, and before she ever came on, each one of our guests really were already members of the chamber, and they said they got more notoriety, they got more of a client base, all of those things because they got involved with the town and the Chamber of Commerce, and they donated T-shirts or they donated, whatever goods that they had. I know Kyle's Coffee does that. So it's just something to kind of put in your mind if you haven't thought about the Chamber of Commerce in your town. Check that out because it could be a really great resource.
Yeah, and if you're in Kernersville, we strongly encourage you to do that because it's a great resource. And we do have an episode with Chris, who's the president. And
she's awesome.
Yeah, she's amazing. And you probably want to watch that. She has a great story as well.
What I want to talk about next is this episode, I don't believe has gotten the viewership or the due that I feel like it deserves. And that was Next Step Ministries.
Next Step Ministry. That was a very emotional episode.
Very emotional.
Yeah, it really was.
So for those who are just joining or just watching, haven't been able to go back in the log to see it. Is that what it's called? No. Archive.
Well,
back in the little archive of our shows. Next Step Ministry is a nonprofit organization that operates a safe house, an emergency safe house for sexual assault victims and abuse, domestic violence, and also sex trafficking. And they are based here in Kernersville. And as we sat down and got into the conversation, there was some very revelatory moments that I had, very emotional moments that I had. But I really think that that word needs to spread more, that they are here. And not only that, I hope that it spurs ideas for other people who may be in other towns to say, hey, what can we do? Because the reason that Next Step Ministries even exist is because, you know, there was someone in the town that was involved in an active abuse situation and ultimately lost her life because there weren't resources around. And so, you know, certain people in the town came together and said, well, let's, you know, form this. And they did that. So the cool thing about how they continue to operate is they have a thrift store. The thrift store really makes up for, I think, about 50% of what they need. And then the rest of it is, you know, fundraising and donations. They've done things very wisely, even from a business aspect. There are QR codes for their different sets of needs. Every month they put out what they need in the safe house or in the store that month. And it's just, it changes every month. And so smart ideas to get the word out. And Kernersville has definitely championed them, and other counties who are much bigger and cities do really call on them and say, how do you do this so that they can become more effective? But I was changed truly by one concept that she brought to us, which was a lot of people who are in domestic violence situations, that the abuser wants to keep them vulnerable. And one of the biggest ways that an abuser keeps them vulnerable is to keep them pregnant.
Yes.
Or to use the children as pawns.
Yeah. So to maintain a position of power is what happens. And that was a very emotional moment.
Like, I had to stop in there. And I'm like, I'm sorry. I know this is maybe like your everyday talk, but I had never had that presented to me, because not only is that, you know, awful, but it also really shows the premeditation of the abuser to do something like that. And that that blew my mind. And I needed to take a breath for a minute.
Yeah.
And
I could tell that was just a very emotional thing. I know we talked about awareness for that ministry, and really every community deals with that challenge. It's everywhere, and it's a sad thing, and nobody wants to talk about it. It's very uncomfortable to talk about. It generates all kinds of emotions. We sat here at this table and felt those emotions. I've been involved in ministry almost my entire adult life, and even before that, and that it was bringing things to mind that I had seen and experienced, and even in a position of leadership had to deal with, and it was just difficult. It was like you almost couldn't say anything because of the emotions that you were feeling. And so I saw that affect you in that way. And then also for me, a lot of times this is viewed as a woman's issue, and primarily it is. And this part we didn't.
No, we cut the cameras.
We cut the cameras. We had already finished the podcast. Yeah. But we end up having a lengthy conversation afterward, and we probably need to revisit that sometime. But I asked about men being abused, and some stories were shared with us that were really shocking. but that does happen,
Yeah.
and it's a very sad thing. But
And they serve them as
yes,
well.
they serve them in as well. And I've been to the thrift store, went and visited there. Just I wanted to see all of that, and so that's a great service that's being provided in the community. And one thing that was neat about that in that conversation we had is that some of the people they serve don't have the opportunity to
Yeah.
go to a
Shop.
place and shop for themselves, and they make that possible.
Yeah.
To give them a certain amount of money and let them go in and just shop for what you want. That was a very touching thing.
It was
moving
touching
thing.
because the choice aspect of it,
Yeah.
when someone who has been given no choices for a long period of time, down to even what they wear, and then you put them in a store and say you can have whatever you want, and it's almost like she explained, some of them kind of look around and I can imagine freeze a little bit because they don't know themselves. They don't know what they want. They only know kind of what their abuser has told them they are.
Yeah.
And so those are just baby steps to the confidence and the healing that those women need to get back up on their feet again and hopefully never return to a domestic situation like that, and allow themselves to be in a domestic situation like that again. And I say allow, and I don't mean that in a way of, well, you chose, like, I'm not saying it that way, but I believe once you go through something as devastating as the stories that she was sharing with us as a person, hopefully you walk out of there with life lessons and boundaries and non-negotiable things. Like, these are lines that I've set for myself and my family, and I won't bend on these particular matters anymore. So I believe they give them the counseling that they need.
Yes.
And the help for the children that are traumatized in this situation. I know that was a portion of what they were really trying to beef up in their program, was for the children of these domestic violence situations.
And it's all, even since that episode, we've heard of situations in our own community since then that have been very traumatic, and these services are needed very much so. And I think one of the things I want to encourage our listeners is I think really every church ought to be involved in helping support this ministry. That may not be liked the way I say that, but I think it's that important. Need to consider that. The other thing too is every month, Audra had mentioned this, they put out a list of items that would help them in their home and in the ministry that they're providing. That is something even a Sunday school class could take on, an adult Sunday school class, to get that list in advance and say, all right, this next month, we're going to help gather these materials and get them to them.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of ways. And even as an individual, you may have the resources to be able to send $20 a month to them to support them. So just all kinds of ideas.
Like $25 made such a huge difference in their.
Yeah.
She did use that number. So anyway,
so that was a great episode, enlightening, very emotional.
Super emotional. And I will end on that subject by saying that I look at Kernersville in a totally different manner than she looks at Kernersville.
Right.
And I think that that's a global problem. I don't think that that's, Kernersville special in any way. But I mean, we think Kernersville is really safe and our crime is really not, not a lot. But the people on the front lines, like the KPD and Next Step Ministries and things, they are confronted with visual things and scenes and all of those things that forever change the way that they look at this community. And I'm so happy that they are kind of on the front line of that so that I can still go down the road and go, oh, this is whatever. But we don't need to be that oblivious.
Right. And be grateful for those that serve on the front lines.
Yes.
Because it's a very challenging thing to see and deal with personally. I know in my past, I've experienced that. It's very difficult at times. So those guys need our prayers. Those guys and girls, they need our prayers and support. And
And so one way we will do that, I would love to put that hotline number up here. And just so if anybody is struggling with that, they'll talk to you. It doesn't mean you have to leave the situation you're in right now, but they can prepare you. I think that's an important piece to put in right here. Once again, also, if you want to hear the full story and in depth, obviously go to the Next Step Ministries episode on Legacy Podcast Studio.
And Alexandria Hicks is doing an amazing job.
Yeah.
She is, and I'm grateful she's in our community. Now we had this other podcast, and we had a character come in, and it was really fun to have him.
Yeah.
On that day.
Brian?
Yeah, we're talking about Brian Clark with Dad Joke Coffee. And even with the name Dad Joke Coffee, you know he's got to be a character, right? So what was neat about him is I started hearing about him, first of all, from my daughter, Madison.
Because all of our kids are coffee.
Yeah, we're all
and
I'm coffee nut. We're all coffee nuts. And Madison's a barista here in Kernersville. While she goes to college, and she met Brian and really enjoyed her conversation with him. And then she told me about it. And then later, my wife, Heather, met him with Madison, and she came home and said the same thing. Man, this guy's great. You need to go meet him. So I did go by and see him, and we had a conversation and really enjoyed Brian and his story. And I think what was unique, we talk about small businesses. A lot of times we're talking about a brick and mortar place, just like our studio. We have an address. We're a brick and mortar business, like a lot of our businesses. But his is a mobile business. He doesn't have a brick and mortar location yet. I know that's one of his goals down the road. But he has a mobile coffee business
on the back of like a trailer.
Yeah, he built this trailer.
Yeah, and not like...
He started with a tent.
Not like a food truck, but a literal flatbed,
flatbed trailer. He built into a little coffee shop, and he pulls behind his truck. What I like about him is not only just an interesting guy. I enjoyed talking to him, but this next week, and he's going to be celebrating his 1 year of being in business. So that is a big accomplishment.
Yeah.
And he has a lot of goals.
He has a lot of goals. I love the way that he laid that out. We were very, we questioned him a lot about, how business was. And he was sharing that every month there was a goal, but every month that, it was exceeding the goal. But then he put in front of us something that, for business people, I think is very smart. It was phases. So he had phase 1, phase 2, and phase 3 that he kind of shared with us. And if you want to know all the phases and what they mean, go watch the episode, Dad Joke Coffee. And right now he is in phase 1, but the things that he's got planned for phase 2, he's actively pursuing. All the while, the business is still growing over here and taking care of his expenses, his family, all of those things, which is wonderful. But his eye is on the next thing as well to bring that to fruition.
Yeah, and it was exciting to hear all those things. I know he explained them to me, and it's really, really neat. And it's fun to listen to somebody who's a business owner that's excited about their business, and they share with you what they're wanting to accomplish. And if you're an entrepreneur yourself, you're going to get excited listening to them because you get it.
You need to watch that episode.
So that was really fun.
And that episode also, and we'll play the clip here because This is Lamar's favorite clip.
I
remember.
think of all of our episodes, this is the most funniest thing. And you came up with it, Audra. So he was describing.
So let's just play the clip.
We're going to play the clip.
Yeah.
Okay. Can I say the word? Or just let the clip do it?
Let's let the clip do it.
Oh.
Just for a second.
I want to say the word.
You can.
I want to say the word.
Go ahead. Say the word.
You're
the coffee Willy Wonka.
Yeah. I love that. That's great.
And it was spot on. I thought it was, I'm getting out of the mic. I thought it was hysterical. And it really fit.
Though.
He did love it. And it fit him well. So
he was talking about, toasting the marshmallows and having a Heath bar. And I'm like getting hungry over here. And he's using all of these, staple candies from all of our childhood, and I don't even drink coffee, and I'm like, I want to go try that.
Yeah.
So
that was a neat episode and really fun to do. I love coffee anyway, and it was a lot of interesting things about business too that were helpful,
sure.
Especially the coffee Willy Wonka. I'll never forget that. Especially the way you said it. So
because I was legit.
I know you were. That's what was so great about it. So I think next let's talk about fits. Is that all right with you?
Yeah, let's talk about fits.
We need to talk about fits. That episode was also emotional, and but it was really it was a feel good episode about somebody in our community. That community loves them, and have been supportive of them. And we had them in after a devastating thing happened.
That took their, has shut their business completely down. And the history that we were able to go through in that episode that, dated back to Fitz's childhood, but even before that, how long the building had been there and what it had been before and what it meant. And then, just learning about Fitz's journey. I mean, he was a school principal,
successful school principal, retiring.
Yeah.
And then opens his business.
But the cool thing was he was a school principal, and he took over for his dad, who had been the principal at the same school. Yeah, and had retained like most of the teachers there. So he left, his boy with a really good base. Yeah. And I think that's where anybody in business, if you just, and he said this a lot in that, surround yourself with the right people and let them do what they do best.
So our podcast studio's name is,
I have this on Do Not Disturb, but okay.
Are you good?
I'm good. Yeah. Mom, I'll call you back. We can leave that in. It's fine.
So we've called this studio Legacy Podcast Studio, and that's the word that comes to mind when I think about that episode.
Yes.
And David Fitzpatrick there's a legacy there. I mean, you can see it and you can feel it. The community's a part of it. So legacy is a good word for that episode, and you need to watch that episode because it's a great
There's
story.
A lot of emotions, but a lot of I felt extremely patriotic by the time that we were, done hearing him and finding out like what his dad did in World War II, and just some relevant things to even what has been on TV today that Steven Spielberg did something called Masters of the Air. And if it ties into Fitz's family and his father, and then ultimately the VFW, who the chapter here showed up for their business as soon as they heard word that it had caught fire and burned. And so they had kind of adopted him, even though he hadn't served like his father did. They had wrapped their arms around him, and they did fundraisers. I mean, several people I know, Follies did fundraiser, and then
Kyle's
the-
Coffee did.
Kyle's Co-
Yes. I need to find my coffee. I
yeah,
don't know what happened to my coffee. But Kyle did that. And then we talked about Chrissy earlier. They actually
they did
did
that
cookies too.
Yeah,
And sold out like the first day and
Yeah.
had to reorder. So yeah, a lot of community support for them.
absolutely.
Yeah.
We want to see him back.
Yes, and it looks like they're working very hard to make that happen. I think what was neat also about that is we got to meet April, and that
Yes.
was really fun. It got called her his right hand man, and that didn't go over real well, but very.
Okay. You're learning.
Yes,
It's okay.
very amazing team, and I thought it was. I enjoyed her coming here because she was real nervous about.
She was. She said, "I'm not going to talk."
I'm not
And
saying
then,
anything.
Then she ended up just
Yes.
really bringing, a different side of how that night went down and how connected, even though she doesn't own,
Yes.
Fits on Main, she has such ownership because I remember saying like, we picked out that floor. I picked out this, and so it was her dream too that went up
Exactly.
in smokes, and
Yeah.
she's
It was fun to see that emotion.
Yeah.
I enjoyed that very, very much. And I know Daniel and I, when the VFW did their fundraiser, we were able to visit
Yeah.
there and see them. And so, yeah, the community support there was just really, really amazing.
So I mean, again, we're not going to get through all of them
No.
today. I kind of almost, I want to summarize a little bit for now.
Yeah.
After everything that we've talked about, and bring it back to this. All of the things that we've talked about could not have been possible had we not had a dream.
Right. True.
Had, Daniel and you and I not sat down and invested time, money, and sweat equity into this studio here. And the cool thing, and I don't think we say it as much because we normally have guests on and we're talking about our guest. But what we want to see come out of this studio is so many more podcasts
Right.
that we don't even have to be a part of. This is truly something that can be your own podcast
Right.
studio if you're listening and saying, hey, I want to do that. Well, we've got it here for you to be able to do that and create a turnkey production, meaning you just walk in here. You walk in here, you sit down, you do your podcast, and we give it to you. There's some editing that we will help you with, and then it's yours, and you can promote it in whatever way that you want to do.
And we also want other businesses. If you watch any of these episodes, you'll kind of see what we're trying to get at. And you may be saying, boy, I'd like to be on the Small Business Leaders podcast because I have a story to tell as well. I'd like to share it with our community and some of the lessons I've learned to encourage a young person or somebody, another entrepreneur that may be wanting to start a business. And this is a great platform. The podcast is just taking the world by storm. And you can see that every day. And this is a great format for you to share your story. And what makes the Small Business Leaders podcast great is that it's not a whole lot of effort on the front end for you as a business owner.
No.
We're going to research your business some and learn a little bit about you. And then we're going to sit down and have a conversation with you and let you share your passion, share your heart, tell the community what you're providing in the way of your business. And it's a great thing for you to share on your own social media.
You've got, normally
you have that content that it's great.
that can be used in Reels, that can be used on TikTok, that can be used in the long format.
Yes.
But, it would be yours to circulate with your base, which is, it's very valuable when you look at.
Thing. It's a neat way to promote your business. We've been exposed to this for many years and absolutely love it. And now that we've got 10 episodes under our belt, it excites me to to have done this and to be able to continue to do it. So we want you to come in and be our guest. And if you'll contact us, we'll let you know what's involved in making that happen.
Yeah, that, and also I always want to, and I say this at a lot of our endings, but I would love suggestions, questions, things that you want answers to. If you're a small, I don't care, whatever you want answers to. I was going to just put small business there or an entrepreneur, but if you'll really invest some time and listen to the archives of these past episodes, you really can create a framework that I believe would really help you, whether you're just starting or you're in the middle of it or whatever. We can always better ourselves by learning from other people who are being successful at that.
Yeah.
And
business owners are real people. And they have families and they have challenges, they have successes, and you get to see that in these episodes, and it makes me want to support their businesses.
absolutely.
It makes me excited about being a part of this community. I fell in love with Kernersville when I first came up here, and now that I'm meeting these different business owners and hearing their stories, it makes me even more excited for the Triad, because it's not just Kernersville.
No.
We've done other podcasts outside of
Yeah.
in the Triad, and
We'll
it's
get to those in
yeah.
another recap.
Yes,
But
absolutely.
for now,
For now,
we're going to end it here. And I would say, please find Legacy Podcast Studio you can find it on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, Spotify, Apple Music. I don't know how many more, but
all over the place.
find Legacy Podcast Studio. Contact us, and I promise you that we will interact with you in whichever form you choose to contact us at. But subscribe. That does help. Every time a new episode comes out, it helps you know who might be on here, and it might just be someone that you know and your neighbor. So we thank you for your support so far, and we look forward to even more in the future. And with that,
That's it.
that's it.
Good.
See you next
Great
time.
Yeah.